The fork rang once against the porcelain when the declaration reached the table. A thin blue line raced around the rim of the luncheon display, replacing the menu with the seal of the Mordan Empire. Across the long window, Dawnwell burned white beyond the station glass, and 12 Imperial warships hung in high orbit like black needles against the glare. Ambassador Nora Ellery looked from the display to the untouched soup in front of her, then to War Marshal Verk Joss. Joss remained standing. His formal armor had been polished to a mirror sheen, and the gold plates at his throat marked him as the highest military authority in the system. Behind him, 2 aides had already stepped away from the table. Their wrist screens glowed with mobilization orders. "By authority of the Imperial throne," Joss said, "the Mordan Empire recognizes a state of war with Earth, effective immediately." Nora picked up her 2-tined fork, turned it once between her fingers, and glanced toward the tray warmer beside the wall. "Now we're after lunch." For half a second, nobody moved. Then one of the Mordan aides made a sharp sound that might have been disbelief. Joss's eyes narrowed. "You misunderstand." "I don't think I do. You have 58 minutes before our battle group reaches its first attack geometry." Nora looked through the window again. Earth's defense presence looked unimpressive from the station. HES Breakwater was a white mark low over Dawnwell's sunlit limb. HES Kestrel Arc was farther out, above the northern plain. HES Quiet Harbor had passed behind the planet 7 minutes earlier and was not visible at all. 3 human cruisers. 12 Mordan heavy warships. No human formation. No emergency burn. No visible rush. Joss placed both hands on the table. "If your commanders require time to understand the situation, I will repeat it." Nora cut a piece of roasted root from her plate. "They understand it." The station trembled faintly. It was not an explosion. It was the distant vibration of docking clamps reacting to a large ship changing thrust outside. One of Joss's aides checked her wrist display. "The Dawn Edict has begun alignment." Nora ate the piece of root. Joss watched her chew. At last he said, "I was warned humans perform calmness as a negotiation tactic." "Sometimes. And now I'm having lunch." The first sign that something was wrong appeared on the Dawn Edict 7 minutes later. Senior astrogator Lysa Wren stood at the center of the flagship's navigation deck, with one hand resting on the edge of the main plot. Dawnwell filled the central sphere. The Imperial formation shone as 12 red marks descending toward a planned transfer arc. Human ships appeared as 3 pale triangles scattered so widely that no Mordan Academy instructor would have called them a fleet. "Projected human response," Joss asked over the command channel. Lysa expanded the plot. "Kestrel Arc can reach our outer screen in 43 minutes if she burns at combat output. And Breakwater, 38 minutes to our projected line. Quiet Harbor, unknown until she clears the planet, minimum 46. Joss's image remained calm on the side display. "So the ambassador is bluffing." Lysa did not answer immediately. Something bothered her. The human ships had received the declaration 6 minutes ago. Any competent force facing a concentrated enemy should already have been accelerating. Even a badly positioned fleet would burn toward a common defensive plane. The human ships had barely changed thrust. "Astrogator, I am checking their maneuver state." "What is there to check?" Lysa isolated Breakwater. The cruiser had made a correction 11 seconds after the declaration. The burn had lasted less than 4 seconds. Kestrel Arc had made a correction too. 3 seconds. Quiet Harbor, hidden behind Dawnwell, had transmitted a standard civilian traffic update and nothing else. Lysa frowned. "They are not converging." A pause. Joss said, "Then their command is slower than expected." That explanation fit doctrine, it fit history, it fit the visible numbers. Still, Lysa enlarged the human vectors. Breakwater's 4-second correction had changed almost nothing about her current location. But current location was not the only thing an astrogator saw. A ship was also every place its momentum could carry it. Lysa called up a future position fan. The pale triangle became a widening cone of possible locations. She added the Dawn Edict's projected path. The two shapes touched. Not now. 36 minutes from now. Lysa straightened. Run independent closure prediction. Her deputy looked up, against Breakwater. Against all three. The first results returned in less than a minute. Lysa stared. Kestrel Ark's expected combat burn was irrelevant. If the human ship did nothing except remain on her current orbit and make one minor correction 15 minutes later, she would cross the projected path of the Imperial 3rd Division at weapons range. Quiet Harbor's hidden path was worse. Dawnwell's gravity would carry her around the far side and into a natural intercept against the Imperial rear screen. Breakwater's current track passed nowhere near the flagship. Her future track did. The humans were scattered. The future was not. Marshal, Lysa said. Joss appeared on her display again. We have a geometry anomaly. His expression hardened. Define anomaly. Our current maneuver plan produces 3 probable human intercepts without requiring human fleet convergence. How? I am checking. We are not changing the battle plan because 3 patrol cruisers happen to be in orbit. I did not recommend changing it. But Lysa's voice sounded different to her own ears. She had spent 23 years learning how fleets moved. A formation created strength because ships close enough to support one another could mass weapons, sensors, and shields. Scattered forces surrendered initiative. That was not theory to the Mordani. It was arithmetic. Yet the human positions were beginning to look less like a failed formation and more like something she did not have a name for. On the station, Nora finished half her meal before Captain Micah Trent called. She did not leave the table. She touched the small communicator at her collar. Ellery. Breakwater. Joss listened from across the table. Trent's voice was ordinary, almost flat. Imperial lead elements have started the published descent. I see them. We have no fire authorization request. Nora glanced at Joss. Good. Joss gave a short laugh. Your captain asks permission not to fight. Trent heard him. No, Marshal. Joss leaned toward Nora's collar communicator. Then what are you asking? I'm informing the ambassador that my weapons remain safe. Why tell her? Because when you understand why, I don't want you mistaking restraint for delay. The channel went silent. Joss's jaw tightened. Nora set her fork beside her plate. That sounded less diplomatic than I'd hoped. You expect me to be intimidated by 3 ships that refuse to maneuver? No. Good. I expect your astrogator to call you. That happened 30 seconds later. Joss's wrist display flashed. He accepted. Lysa appeared. Marshal, request permission to delay main transfer burn by 4 minutes. Joss did not look away from Nora. Reason. I have reproduced 6 closure events across our current plan. Combat closures. Yes. Based on human acceleration. No. Now Joss looked down at the display. Lysa continued. That is the issue. The luncheon room became very quiet. Joss stepped away from the table. Explain. The human ships are not trying to reach us. Their existing trajectories already intersect the future positions created by our descent. They only need small corrections. How small? For breakwater, less than 12 meters per second if our primary plan remains unchanged. Joss's expression did not move. 12 meters per second was nothing. A shuttle used more to leave a docking corridor. That cannot cover a 12-ship battle group. It does not directly. Then we continue. Lysa hesitated. What does it cover? Joss asked. Our decision tree. Nora watched the marshal go still. Lysa pushed a new plot to his wrist display. Even from across the table, Nora could see branching red lines. Every Imperial choice created a different future. Some climbed. Some descended. Some widened toward the dark side of Dawnwell. Across each branch, pale human tracks appeared. Not walls. Intersections. Joss studied them. You are showing probabilities. Yes. Not firing solutions. Not yet. Then continue the approach. Lysa inhaled. Yes, Marshal. The Imperial fleet burned. On the navigation deck of the Dawn Edict, artificial weight shifted under Lysa's boots as the flagship increased thrust. Her chair restraints tightened against her hips. Beside the plot, water inside a transparent drinking tube climbed a fraction toward one end. Red vectors lengthened. The future changed. So did the human paths. Not because the humans accelerated hard. They did not. Breakwater made another small correction. Kestrel Arc adjusted twice. Quiet Harbor came around Dawnwell's night side and appeared on Imperial sensors exactly where Lysa's revised model had predicted. Her deputy whispered, "That is deliberate." Lysa did not answer. She overlaid the Imperial attack plan with weapons envelopes. The first result arrived. In 31 minutes, Breakwater would have a clean crossing shot against the flagship's forward escort if the Mordani maintained descent. If the escort climbed away, Kestrel Arc would gain the shot instead. If the escort dropped deeper, Quiet Harbor would approach from below the orbital plane. Lysa changed the escort's burn. The intersection moved. It did not disappear. She changed the timing. It moved again. Still there. She removed all predicted human combat acceleration. The intersections remained. That was when she understood the first part. The human fleet had not been arranged around the Morden battle group. The human fleet had been arranged around Dawnwell. Their patrol pattern was older than the Declaration, possibly older than the Imperial arrival. The humans had not predicted Joss's exact plan. They had built a defensive posture that made many plans expensive. "Marshal," Lysa said. Joss answered from the station. "Report. This is not an ambush." "I am aware of that. I mean, they did not configure these orbits for us." "Silence. Our records show breakwater on this patrol arc for 11 days, Lysa continued. Kestrel Arc for 6. Quiet Harbor shifted planes yesterday for debris inspection. Joss's eyes narrowed. Then the intersections are coincidence. No. Lysa hated the word even as she said it. The patrol geometry is designed to preserve future intercept access against multiple approach families. We entered one of those families when we committed to descent. Joss looked toward Nora. The ambassador had returned to her meal. That would require them to sacrifice concentration. Yes. Which is why no major fleet uses such a posture. Yes. 3 cruisers cannot defeat 12 heavy ships merely by being inconveniently placed. No. Then what exactly are you telling me? Lysa looked at the plot. I am telling you that our 58-minute initiative window was calculated from the time required for them to assemble. And they do not need to assemble. For the first time since the declaration, Joss did not answer immediately. On Breakwater's bridge, Micah Trent watched the Mording formation descend. He had 37 people on the command deck, and none of them was cheering. A technician near the rear bulkhead was replacing a filter in a coolant vent because the maintenance clock said it was due. The ship's tactical officer was eating crackers from a sealed pouch between updates. Dawnwell filled half the forward display. Imperial forward escort just altered plane, navigation said. Expected. Within branch 7. Correction requirement. 6 meters per second. Trent considered. Take 3. The helm officer nodded. Breakwater's maneuvering clusters pulsed. 3 meters per second. Nothing dramatic happened. No roaring main engine. No sudden turn. The cruiser simply purchased a slightly different future. Tactical. Weapons remain safe. Keep them that way. Imperial targeting is active. I know. They may interpret safe shutters as weakness. Trent looked at the red marks on the display. Then they can enjoy that interpretation for another few minutes. The third Imperial maneuver came 20 minutes after the declaration. This one was not part of the original approach. Lysa knew it before Joss said anything. The fleet's 4th and 5th divisions rotated outward, preparing for a high-thrust lateral separation. Marshal, she said, that is not on the battle plan. No. What is the objective? To test your theory. Lysa stared at him. You are splitting the formation. Your model claims their dispersed posture can answer our branches. It can answer the branches we have tested. Then we create more. The order spread through the fleet. 12 heavy warships separated into 3 maneuver groups. The Dawn Edict and 3 escorts continued inward. 4 ships climbed toward a high polar plane. 4 descended hard toward Dawnwell's dark limb. For the first time that day, Lysa felt something close to relief. This was Mording warfare again. Separation increased complexity, but it also increased the distance the 3 human cruisers would need to cover. No scattered patrol could hold 3 widely divergent maneuver planes at once. Recompute, Joss ordered. Lysa's team worked. The deck vibrated beneath them. The climbing division increased thrust. The descending group vanished behind Dawnwell's sensor glare. Human ships responded. Breakwater corrected. Kestrel Arc corrected. Quiet Harbor did not. Lysa waited. Her main plot built the future tracks. 1 intersection vanished. Then a second. Her deputy smiled. Marshal, the split is working. Joss watched from the station with Nora beside him. Continue. Then the computer completed the next branch. Lysa's relief disappeared. The polar group had escaped Breakwater. But in doing so, it had committed to a plane that Kestrel Arc would cross naturally 42 minutes later. The descending group had escaped Kestrel Arc. But Dawnwell's gravity would carry Quiet Harbor into its outbound corridor. The flagship group remained Breakwater's problem. 3 Imperial groups. 3 human cruisers. Not because the humans had divided targets in advance. Because Joss's own burns had sorted the Imperial fleet into the humans' existing orbital opportunities. Lysa changed the polar group's vector. Its Kestrel Arc intersection weakened. A Breakwater intersection appeared farther out. She changed it again. Quiet Harbor gained 1. She pushed the group into an expensive escape burn. The intersection disappeared. So did its ability to support the Dawn Edict for more than 4 hours. Her deputy stopped smiling. Lysa felt the chair restraint tighten as the flagship made another burn. Across the main plot, red future lines spread like cracks. Pale human paths crossed them one after another. "Marshal," she said. Joss answered sharply, "Which group is trapped?" Lysa looked at the geometry. "That is not the correct question. Answer mine. None of them is trapped." Joss's face relaxed a fraction. Then Lysa continued. "But every group must choose between a future human firing opportunity and leaving mutual support range." The relaxation vanished. "Can they destroy us?" Lysa hesitated. "With 3 cruisers against 12 heavy ships, not cleanly." Nora spoke from somewhere near Joss. "That wasn't the question." Lysa heard her. Joss turned. Nora continued. "The question is whether your war still starts on your terms." Joss cut the connection. For 6 minutes, nobody on the Dawn Edict's navigation deck spoke except to call numbers. Lysa kept calculating. The more she looked, the less the human posture resembled a fleet. It resembled ownership of choices. Not absolute control. Not a trap. Something subtler. Every Morden maneuver had a price in future geometry. The humans had already paid theirs. They had spent days occupying useful orbits. The Empire was trying to buy position in minutes. That was why the ambassador had asked about lunch. The start time mattered less to the humans than it did to the Mordani. Lysa opened a direct line to Joss. "Marshal, I need to state a correction for the record." His face appeared again. "Do it." "Our original readiness estimate was wrong." "How wrong?" "The 58-minute window does not exist." Joss stared. "Explain precisely." "We defined human readiness as time to concentration. Their doctrine defines readiness as retained access to future intercepts. They were ready before we declared war." On the station, the tray warmer clicked off. Nora noticed, because the room had become quiet enough to hear it. Her lunch was no longer warm. Joss stood beside the window, hands behind his back. Outside, the Imperial ships were invisible to the naked eye, but their tactical symbols moved across the glass through the station overlay. 3 groups now. 3 human cruisers still scattered. The picture looked absurd until someone understood time. Joss said, "Your captain has not fired." "No." "Why?" "Because you can still stop." "That sounds like a threat." "It's an option." "You expect an Imperial warfleet to withdraw because 3 patrol ships have favorable orbital crossings." "No." "What do you expect?" "That you ask your astrogator what happens if you keep accelerating." Joss's wrist display flashed again. He ignored it. Nara picked up her fork. Joss looked at it. "You find this amusing?" "No." "You insulted me with that question." "Which question?" "Lunch." Nora set the fork down. "I asked because if you meant to begin immediately, our military needed to know which rules applied. If you meant to begin after lunch, I preferred not to waste the food." "You are claiming there was no bravado." "There was irritation." Joss's wrist display flashed a second time. He accepted. Lysa appeared. "Marshal, the Polar Division is requesting permission for an additional escape burn." "Denied." "They will enter Kestrel Ark's projected weapons envelope in 29 minutes. If they burn, they avoid that envelope. And then they lose support range with the flagship group." Joss looked toward the window. "What about the lower division?" "Quiet Harbor receives them on their outbound climb." "Change the climb." "Breakwater receives them farther out." "Then Breakwater cannot cover us." Lysa was silent. Joss's eyes sharpened. "Say it." "If Breakwater commits outward, the flagship group gains a temporary corridor. There, but Kestrel Arc can descend into that corridor after the polar group escapes. Joss's mouth tightened. How much thrust? For Kestrel Arc. Minimal. For us. Lysa checked the numbers. To preserve formation support while avoiding all 3 projected intercept families, we need a coordinated burn of approximately 4 minutes at combat output, followed by a second correction near perigee. Cost. High. Do it. Lysa did not move. Marshal. That was an order. Yes. Then execute. Lysa looked at the future plot one more time. There was a reason the computer had not recommended the burn automatically. After the second correction, the fleet can avoid the current human firing windows. Joss's posture eased. Lysa continued. But we will be committed to a high-energy outbound transfer with limited reversal margin. So if the humans accelerate after that point, we will no longer have enough maneuver reserve to answer every branch. Joss's voice lowered. You told me they are using existing position. They are. Now you are telling me they can maneuver too. Yes. Nora closed her eyes briefly. Joss saw it. What? She opened them. Nothing. That was not nothing. I was hoping you wouldn't make Lysa explain the obvious part. Lysa heard her name through the open channel. Joss turned cold. The obvious part. Nora looked at him. Their ships have engines. No one spoke. Joss ended the call. On Breakwater, the Imperial combat burn appeared across every display at once. 12 ships increasing thrust, Tactical said. Formation. Coordinated escape geometry. Navigation shook his head. Not escape. They're trying to outrun the current intersections and preserve support. Trent watched the red vectors lengthen. Projected result. They clear all present windows. A few officers looked toward him. Trent waited. Navigation added the human response options. A new set of pale paths appeared. We can rebuild closure if we use main drive. How much? Breakwater needs 48 seconds. Kestrel Arc 61. Quiet Harbor 34. Tactical looked at Trent. If we burn now, they will see it. They already know we have engines. Fire Control requests permission to open shutters. No. Captain, if they complete this burn, our next clean windows narrow. I know. They are entering attack posture. I know. The tactical officer lowered her voice. Then why are we waiting? Trent looked at the timer. Because the Mordin burn was still reversible. Because firing now would prove the humans could win a battle, but destroy the more important proof. Because the war had been declared, but a declaration was not the same as a shot. Because he wanted Joss to understand that the human advantage was not dependent on surprise. Hold shutters closed, Trent said. Navigation prepare the closure burn. Do not execute. The timer fell. 40 seconds. 30. 20. On the dawn edict, Lysa watched the human ships. No main drive flare. No weapon activation. Nothing. Her stomach tightened. Why were they waiting? The Mordin fleet's burn continued. 12 seconds remained before the transfer became expensive to reverse. Lysa checked the future. The humans still had a response. 8 seconds. Still no human burn. 5. Lysa opened a command line. Marshal. Joss answered. What? They are holding. I can see that. They could have burned 20 seconds ago. Then perhaps the ambassador's confidence was misplaced. No. Lysa heard herself say it with certainty. Joss went silent. They are letting us choose. 2 seconds. Lysa's hand moved toward the emergency recommendation control. 1 second. Joss said, cancel burn. Across 12 moored ships, engines throttled down. Artificial weight eased. The water in Lysa's drinking tube slid slowly back toward level. On breakwater, navigation exhaled. Imperial burn canceled. Trent looked at tactical. Weapons. Saved. Keep them saved. No one cheered. Outside, Dawnwell turned beneath them. The first war between Earth and the Mordine Empire had lasted 41 minutes without a shot. But it was not finished yet. Joss returned to the luncheon table. His meal had gone cold. Nora's had too. For the first time, he sat. Your captain withheld a maneuver that would have restored his firing geometry. He prepared it. He did not execute. No. Because he knew I would stop. No. Joss looked at her. Then why? Because you might stop. The difference irritated him more than certainty would have. His wrist display rested beside his plate. Lysa's revised assessment filled the screen. Human orbital defense posture. Distributed. And convergent. High retained intercept access. First mover estimate invalid. Joss read the final line twice. You call this doctrine? We do. You accept weaker local concentration. Yes. You accept that one ship may face multiple enemies. Yes. You accept that your ships can be isolated. Yes. Then it is not superior. Nora nodded. Correct. That answer stopped him. She continued. It isn't superior everywhere. It is useful here. Joss looked toward Dawnwell. Humanity was not claiming a universal revelation. No magic doctrine. No unbeatable fleet. Just a posture built for a place, a mission, and a kind of threat. That made it harder to dismiss. His screen flashed with another message. Lysa. He opened it. Marshal, I have completed the independent review. Conclusion. If hostilities continue, we retain enough mass to inflict severe losses. Nora listened without expression. Lysa continued. However, we no longer possess reliable initiative. Any attack requires accepting pre-existing human intercept access or spending maneuver reserve to avoid it, which creates later vulnerabilities. Their 3 cruisers cannot destroy the battle group cleanly, but neither can we impose battle on the terms stated in the declaration. Joss said, recommendation. Suspend offensive maneuver. The words hung in the room. Joss looked at Nora. What does Earth demand? Right now. Yes. Stop targeting our ships. And then we discuss why you declared war. That is all. No territorial concession. No. No surrender ceremony. No. No disarmament. Not unless you plan to keep attacking. Joss's fingers tapped once against the table. You have the favorable geometry. For now, you could demand more. We could demand many things. Why not? Nara pushed her cold plate away. Because having leverage is not the same as having a reason. Joss looked down at his own untouched meal. For years, Mordin officers had been taught that restraint after advantage was usually theater. A strong side delayed only when delay increased strength. A weak side delayed because it lacked strength. The humans had delayed at the exact point when delay risked losing their cleanest geometry. They had given him the chance to reverse. That was not weakness. It was a choice he could measure. Joss opened a fleet channel. All Mordin vessels suspend offensive target designation. Maintain current safe separation. Weapons remain closed unless fired upon. The order propagated. On the station glass, 12 red symbols changed status. Nora's communicator clicked. "Breakwater," Trent said. "I've heard. We have reciprocal safing." "Maintain." "Understood." Joss looked at the communicator. "Captain Trent." "Yes, Marshal." "If I had continued the burn." A pause. "We would have moved." "How many of my ships would you have destroyed?" "Unknown." "You calculated it." "We calculated ranges." "That is not an answer." "No." Joss leaned closer. "Then answer." Trent's voice remained calm. "You are asking for the result of a battle that did not happen." Joss waited. Trent added, "I'd prefer to keep it that way." The channel closed. An hour later, the formal Armistice draft appeared on the luncheon display where the war declaration had been. It was short. No territory changed hands. No reparations were assigned. Neither side accepted blame in the immediate document. The first clause established reciprocal standoff distances inside Dawnwell. The second prohibited combat targeting during negotiation. The third required both forces to publish major orbital maneuver changes while talks continued. The fourth replaced the Mording classification of Earth as a peripheral minor power. Joss read the new wording. Independent strategic peer. He disliked it. That was not a reason to reject it. Lysa arrived from the Dawn Edict before the signing. She entered the luncheon room still wearing navigation harness marks across her uniform. For the first time, she saw Nora Ellery in person. The ambassador was standing beside the window, looking at the orbital overlay. 3 human cruisers still followed separate paths. None had converged. Lysa approached the table. "You knew we would calculate it." Nora turned. "I hoped you would." "You did not know me." "No." "Then how?" "Someone had to be doing your navigation." Lysa looked at the two-tined fork beside Nora's plate. "That question about lunch." "Yes." "You already knew the 58 minutes were false." "I knew our people didn't use the same clock." Lysa studied her. "You could have explained." "Would Marshal Joss have believed me?" Lysa considered. "No." "Would you?" Another pause. "Not without the plots." Nora nodded. Then the plots were the explanation. Joss entered before Lysa could answer. He carried no ceremonial sword now. Only a tablet containing the Armistice. He placed it on the table. "Ambassador." "Marshal." He looked at the cold plates. "I believe lunch has ended." Nora picked up the fork. "Technically." For a moment, Lysa thought Joss might take offense again. Instead, he pulled out a chair. "Then we should stop making decisions on an empty stomach." Nora almost smiled. "Almost." Before the servers returned, Lysa's tablet chimed with a priority request from the Imperial Doctrine Office. She read it twice, then passed it to Joss. "What is it?" Nora asked. Joss's expression tightened. "They want an immediate operational category for your patrol doctrine." Nora leaned back. "That seems fast." "It is not admiration. It is damage control." Lysa opened the attached form. The old Morden template offered only 4 classifications for an opponent facing a concentrated fleet: dispersed, assembling, retreating, or defeated. None described 3 ships that remained dispersed while retaining useful future contact across multiple branches. "There is no field for this," Lysa said. Joss looked at her. "Create one." She hesitated. Authority for new combat classifications belongs to Theater Command. I am Theater Command. Lysa entered a new line. Distributed Positional Readiness. Below it, she added a warning. Do not estimate response time from convergence requirement alone. Joss read the sentence. Add location dependence. Lysa looked surprised. He continued, I will not have some cadet deciding this proves concentration obsolete. Nora's eyes shifted toward him with the smallest sign of approval. Lysa amended the note. Effectiveness depends on prepared geometry, mission, and local gravity conditions. Joss pressed his authorization mark. The update transmitted to every mooring vessel in Dawnwell. On Breakwater, the new classification arrived through the Armistice data channel. Trent read it, then forwarded it to Navigation without comment. Navigation laughed once. What? They finally named what we've been doing for years. Trent looked at Dawnwell turning beneath the ship. Names are useful after the math works. The bridge returned to routine. The coolant technician closed the vent panel. Tactical sealed the cracker pouch. Helm restored the ordinary patrol plan that had existed before the declaration. Nothing about the human formation became grander because the Empire had finally understood it. That, more than any threat, made Lysa believe the Armistice might hold. Across the table, Joss watched the same update settle into Imperial records. For the first time that day, the Empire had changed something before humanity forced it to. Nora noticed, but said nothing at all. The three of them sat. Outside, Dawnwell's glare softened as the station moved toward evening. On the tactical overlay, the Morden ships slowly rotated away from attack alignment. Breakwater remained far below them. Kestrel Arc crossed the upper plane. Quiet Harbor disappeared behind the planet again. Separate. Unhurried. Still ready. Joss signed the Armistice with his thumbprint. The war declaration vanished from the display. No one applauded. No fleet fired a victory salute. No commander announced triumph. A server entered uncertainly, looked at the cold plates, and asked whether the guests wanted fresh meals. Nora glanced at Joss. This time he answered first. Now. The server nodded and carried the plates away. Nora set the two-tined fork back on the clean tablecloth. Beyond the window, 12 Morden warships held their new standoff lanes, while 3 human cruisers continued along the same old orbits they had occupied before anyone announced a war.